Hello, welcome to the Neurocortex channel. The general theme of the upcoming videos on this channel will be self-sabotage. Over the next few weeks you will learn about the foundation of life change, about self-control, self-confidence, mind, perfectionism, insecurity, fear, anxiety, procrastination, victimhood, helplessness, and much more. All of this based on the most recent and best scientific studies on the brain, mind, and human behavior. Let's get to today's content. I want to start this video here with our big question. This question that has already been guiding us and will accompany us through many videos on the channel. Who are you? What made you who you are today? In the video Who Are You?, I explained that this question can be answered on various levels of different analysis, so I want to be more specific here. What of what is under your control has most influenced you to become who you are today? Notice that I put an important qualifier here. What is under your control? So, now this is our question. What of what is under your control has most influenced you to become who you are today? Most people, when answering this question, tend to focus on big aspects of life, big questions, big events. You don't need to go very far. If I ask most of you, who are you? You can turn to me and say, I am Berta, an engineer, a family mother. Notice then that people usually highlight the trophies, the showcases when building their own identity, but often we forget about the backstage. Look, for a person to become a PhD, they will literally have to study for more than 9 years. They will need to study daily, research daily, learn daily, attend weekly meetings, watch hundreds of hours of face-to-face classes. They will need to read countless scientific articles and hundreds of books. They will need to spend nights analysing data and writing. They will need to defend their thesis in a board of PhD qualifications. Often, they will do all this while still working. After all, we need money to survive. Not to mention the undergraduate masters and doctoral degrees. That is, this trophy, this showcase PhD, is only the result of an infinity of small behaviours. These small behaviours accumulated over time and allowed this person to obtain their title. Anyway, the same thing is true for you in what is important for your identity. You can tell me I am a family father. But what does that mean? This trophy, this showcase called Family Father, means very little. It seems like a big trophy, and in fact, many people use the big trophies to hide backstage that are false. If I really want to know who you are, I need to know what kind of father you are. And here's the question. I only know what kind of father you are if I look at your behaviours, your micro-behaviours in everyday life. Are you a present father who emotionally supports your family? Who educates your children without delegating their education to others? Are you a father who shows affection and love to your family? Not in grand gestures once in a while, but in the small gestures of everyday life, or an absent father who shows up 2 or 3 times a year to give gifts and throw parties. But in daily life, in the micro-behaviours that truly define us, you are absent and never there. What makes you a good or a bad family father is precisely the day-to-day, the everyday, what seems small now, but when multiplied over the years becomes significant. When we think about who we are or when we introduce ourselves to others, we usually focus on great achievements, big trophies, big events, big showcases. This is a shortcut that our brain seeks to facilitate the understanding of the world and ourselves. It's much easier to look in the mirror or at other people and summarize all that complexity to the grand trophies and fully visible showcases. Our brain likes to put things into simplified boxes to facilitate understanding. This means that we usually also put other people in these simple boxes to understand them more easily, but it's not just other people that we put into these simplified boxes, we put ourselves into them too. It's worth noting that this is especially serious in the world of social media. Social media exposes trophies without showing the day-to-day. It exposes results without showing the process. It exposes the summit of the mountain without showing you the path. Let me give you an example of this. A very personal example, by the way. Several people have approached me, wanting to be neuroscientists. The person says they want to study neuroscience. They want to be a neuroscientist. They show themselves to be deeply, genuinely fascinated and interested in neuroscience. They seem to have a genuine interest in becoming a researcher. Then this person approaches a neuroscience laboratory at a university full of desire to work with neuroscience. But then, when the day-to-day arrives, the tediousness of meetings, studies, when the operational work arrives, which is very necessary, the person has to clean EEG electrodes or enter SPSS or some other statistics software. and clean and organize databases with thousands of variables. And then they have to create a statistical model, modeling as we say, until the model converges. The person has to spend days, sometimes months, reading difficult scientific articles without understanding half of what they're reading. And then, gradually they start to understand, of course. And they have to attend very boring classes with very boring professors on topics that are very boring. Anyway, when the person saw that the glamour of saying, I am a master, I am a PhD, I am a neuroscientist, would cost a lot of energy and require many changes in microbehaviors in their daily lives, they simply gave up. This isn't just in neuroscience, this applies to everything that requires a lot of effort, that demands a long and arduous road of transformations. We live in a world of trophies, of showcases, but when we do this, we often tend to ignore the backstage where the real thing happened. Now, I want to go back to the basic theme of this channel, which is behavior change. And I want to give you a very clear example of this, aligned here with the channel. Some time ago, I told people something that happened to me. I love sweet popcorn, but sugar is very harmful to health. There are few foods more harmful to your health than sugar. So, I decided to make sweet popcorn with stevia powder. Scientific studies indicate that steviol is one of the best zero-calorie sweeteners you can use. And so, I followed a normal sweet popcorn recipe with sugar, but instead of sugar I used stevia. And folks, I need to tell you, this popcorn was awful, it was horrible. I had to throw it all away, so don't try this at home. It's really bad, but so far so good. The thing is, I told people about this experience of mine, and whenever I told someone about it, I heard comments that perfectly exemplify everything I just said a while ago. Comments like, what paranoia once in a while doesn't hurt. And then of course, I agree, once in a while doesn't hurt. The problem is that people don't quite understand what once in a while means. Once in a while tends to be an excuse that people use to do whatever they want when they feel like it. Let's do a very simple math calculation here. Suppose you go to the movies once a week and you eat sweet popcorn once a week, therefore. Many people consider this once in a while. If you eat a pack of sweet popcorn a week when you go to the movies, if this is what you eat for sweet popcorn, I'll ask you, do you consider yourself a sugar consumer? You'll probably answer me no, because you only eat once in a while. And that's what I want to explore now here with you. A pack of sweet popcorn like those from the movies easily contains 50 grams of refined sugar. I know this because I researched sweet popcorn recipes on the internet, and here I'm being very conservative because it's probably much more than that they use in cinemas. After all, they want to maximize the taste for you to buy always. If you eat 50 grams of refined sugar per week, we can divide 50 grams by 7 to see how much it is equivalent to per day of the week. The result is approximately 7.143 grams. Look, 7.143 grams of sugar per day seems very little. We'll multiply that by 365 to see how much it is in a year. If you eat a pack of sweet popcorn a week, you will have eaten 2.607 grams of sugar in a year, more than 2.5 kilograms of sugar, this considering that the popcorn has only 50 grams of sugar, because as I said, it's probably much more. And if you keep doing this for the next 30 years, if you eat 50 grams of sugar per week in 30 years, you will have eaten over 78 kilograms of sugar just from this popcorn. So let's suppose this is the only source of sugar in your life, which is literally impossible. But let's suppose, just to make our example simpler, if this is your only source of sugar, I ask you, in your day-to-day life, do you consider yourself a sugar consumer? You, as I said, would probably respond, no, I only eat a pack of sweet popcorn a week, just that. But if I observe that you ate almost 80 kilograms of sugar in 30 years, you probably change your answer. You turn to me and say, yeah, really, looking at it from this perspective, I was a sugar consumer. Now I want to give a more common example, drinking soda. A 250 milliliters glass of soda usually contains approximately 27 grams of sugar. Let's suppose you drink 3 glasses of soda a week. If I ask you, do you drink soda? Are you a voracious soda drinker? You probably answer no, I only drink soda once in a while. But if you drink 3 glasses of soda every week for the next 30 years, you will drink 1173 litres of soda. This means you will consume 126 kilograms of sugar in that period, just from soda. Something that seems tiny when you're doing it here and now becomes huge when you look at the overall scope of life. But let's imagine you change your habit. Let's imagine you change this habit just a little bit. Imagine that instead of 3 glasses, you start drinking 1 glass of soda a week. Before, you would have drunk 1173 litres of soda and consumed 126 kilograms of sugar. Now with this small change, instead of 3, you drink only 1 glass of soda a week. After 30 years, you will have drunk 391 litres instead of 1173. In other words, 782 litres of soda less, and you will have consumed 42 kilograms of sugar instead of 126. In other words, 84 kilograms of sugar less. And the lesson here is twofold. This lesson has two meanings. Something that seems tiny when you're doing it here and now becomes grandiose, becomes gigantic when you look at life as a whole. But then, a small change that seems insignificant now, in the present moment, also produces grand effects when we look at life as a whole. Let me give you another very serious example of this nowadays. Many of you are parents, many of you are mothers, and many parents allow their children to eat sugar. Let's suppose that you allow your child to eat whatever they want once a week, that they eat sugar freely. Again, I'm being quite conservative here because in general we know it's much worse. Let's also suppose that you follow scientific recommendations and that you didn't allow your child to ingest sugar before the age of 3. Now let's imagine that your child is 13 years old on the way to turning 14. He went from 4 to 13 years old eating sugar once a week because you allowed it. That's 10 years of eating sugar once every 7 days, and the math here is pretty simple. Divide 10 years by 7 and you'll see how much of your child's life he spent eating sugar. It's almost 1.5 years of your child's life, meaning that out of the 13 years of your child's life, he spent 1.5 years eating sugar. It's no wonder that childhood obesity rates are concerning worldwide. Approximately 10% or 1 in every 10 youth between 5 and 19 years old suffer from obesity and overweight. This rate is slightly higher in boys, reaching 13%. Of course, the issue isn't just diet, but also the severe sedentary lifestyle of modern times. But if you imagine that the widely consumed baby cereal contains 25% sugar, meaning for every 100 grams of baby cereal that a mother uses to thicken a bottle or sprinkle on fruits, for every 100 grams of that, which doesn't seem like much, you're offering at least 25 grams of sugar and, depending on the brand, 33 grams of sugar to your child. 33 grams. 100 grams of baby cereal has more sugar than a glass of soda. When you consider that by allowing your child to eat sugar 1 day a week starting from the age of 4, your child will spend practically 1.5 years consuming sugar by the time they're 13 years old, now you might rethink how your child is eating. If you want a more precise number, let's do a quick calculation. If you give your child 30 grams of baby cereal, a glass of soda, and 50 grams of chocolate just once a week, your child will consume about 65 grams of sugar that day. In 1 year, this means 3.390 kilograms, almost 3.5 kilograms of sugar in 1 year. If he eats this from the age of 4 to 13 years old, by the time he turns 14, he will have consumed 33.9 kilograms of sugar, almost 34 kilograms of sugar practically in his life. Things that seem small, tiny, occasional, irrelevant, insignificant there. While you're doing it here in the present, these things accumulate over time and become significant. Maybe I made a mistake in some of those calculations I did because I did the math quickly before preparing this video, but the numbers I presented to you are very close to that. Pay attention to this fundamental principle of change and the construction of human beings' identity and behavior. Who are you? Our big question, who you are, is a result of these small, invisible, microscopic behaviors that accumulate over time. Your flaws that bother you and that you want to change, and the virtues that make you proud of yourself and that you want to nurture in your life. All of this didn't build up overnight. For you today to look at yourself and see these flaws and virtues and understand that this is part of your personality, for example, it's because you've been repeating small behaviors every day that reinforce the flaw or virtue in question. Your flaws and virtues are a house where your behavior lives, and houses are built one brick at a time. Every day you did a little something that fed your flaw, the flaw's house was being built. Every day you did a little something that fed your virtue, the virtue's house was being built, and houses aren't built overnight. And that means that no virtue and no flaw you have will be the result of a revolution that suddenly changes everything in your life. Because real, effective changes happen in the small behaviors, in the micro behaviors of everyday life. Sometimes, dramatic, intense, sudden, unexpected events occur in your life, events that statistician Nassim Nicholas Taleb calls Black Swans. These events changed the landscape of things overnight in a profound and grandiose way. For example, the COVID pandemic in 2020. According to Nassim Taleb himself, the pandemic was not a black swan. After all, scientists knew that this would happen sooner or later, and governments, by the way, could have listened to scientists and prepared for it. But anyway, that's another story. At times like these, I like to differentiate the black swan on a societal level and a personal level. On a societal level, the COVID pandemic was not a black swan. According to the guy who coined the term black swan, it was predictable. Scientific authorities knew there was a good chance of it happening, and in fact, we know it will happen again. But on a personal level, in your life, in the life of the average citizen who isn't a scientist, who doesn't closely follow advances in the biological sciences, in this case, the pandemic was indeed a black swan. You simply didn't expect it. You couldn't expect it. Did it completely change your life? Probably, but such events are rare. In fact, I'll leave the link to Nassim Nicholas Taleb's book The Black Swan in the description, and in the pinned comment the book is very good, it's worth reading. How many September 11th, 2001 events happen in a lifetime? How many coronavirus pandemics like the one we experienced happen? It's quite likely that in your life, a black swan event occurs every 3 to 5, even 10 years. You might even go 20 years without a black swan event occurring in your life, without an unpredictable event that changes the entire landscape of your life, especially when it comes to your personal or professional life. And even when these events occur, as impactful as they may be, they don't truly define who you are. Let's imagine an example here. 2 people who lost their jobs. These 2 people were very good at what they did, earned bonuses every year, they were on an excellent professional growth curve, but a market change happened, and they lost their jobs. This market change was a black swan, meaning it was unpredictable and completely changed the circumstances of these 2 people's lives. Something like the attack on the Twin Towers in the United States or the coronavirus epidemic. Now, imagine that these 2 people were in a happy romantic relationship. They were happy and in a romantic relationship. A few months after losing their jobs, both of them got dumped. So suddenly that relationship that was going so well, it ended. These 2 people were deeply shaken by this dismissal. Both of them entered a period of profound sadness in their lives, and the end of the relationship served to bury these people even further in the abyss of sadness. And then time passed. 4 years later, one of these people is still lamenting what happened. He promised to improve herself to pursue other professional projects, but she keeps procrastinating. Every passing week she promises to start next week. Several opportunities arose, but by procrastinating, this person couldn't seize those opportunities, while the other person, who went through the same things, looked at their strengths and decided to capitalize on them, learned new skills, identified a market need, and transformed professionally to meet that identified need. And after much effort, after investing a lot of time, energy, and resources, this person managed to become a happier professional than they were when they had that job. What is the difference between these 2 people? The grand event was the same, the black swan was the same. If grand events defined who we are, these people would have the exact same fate. The difference lies in what each of these people did daily, in the micro behaviors, right there in the day-to-day to get out of that slump. One of them fed the worst in themselves, while the other fed the best. And you can turn to me and say, oh, that story sounds good on paper, but in reality things are different. But in fact, this is a personal account, and you probably know someone with a similar story. The point here is that if I want to see who you really are, I look at your day-to-day, at your small everyday behaviors. You're not the result of great revolutions, you're not defined by major events, you're not your trophies, your titles, or anything like that. You're not the result of gigantic changes that have occurred in your life. All of that can exist, of course, and all can influence your behavior. This type of event, in fact, can bring you changes in personality, that is, unexpected, grandiose events, black swans that occur in your life and can produce even significant changes in your personality. But who you really are, especially who you will become from now on in your life, is much more determined by your daily choices, in your behaviors, micro-behaviors of everyday life, by the choices made in the little things that, over time, accumulate into gigantic changes. If you have the desire to revolutionize your life overnight, I promise you, it probably won't work. Now, if you commit every day to change a little and persist in that change, your life effectively transforms. This is it for this video. In the next one, I will delve deeper into this topic and explain to you what, for me, is the basis of all change in human life. Remember that the content here on the channel is like a self-awareness course, a life-changing course. Each video is like a lesson. It's possible to watch individual videos and understand the message, but I advise you to watch all the videos in order because one complements the other. Think of it as a Netflix series. Just go to the playlists, everything is organized there by categories and modules, making your learning journey easier. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications to stay updated on upcoming releases. Also, share it with friends and family who may benefit from this content. After all, learning together makes the process more dynamic and effective. Thank you for watching, and until the next video.